Every friendly guide in Elden Ring is quietly asking for something back, and the price is almost never money. These companions hand you their trust piece by piece until the final piece is a blade meant for them. By the time you understand what you agreed to, you already have their blood on your hands. White Mask Vari. The friendliest face in Limgrave is the one who quietly enrolls you in a blood cult before you even fight your first real boss. Vara stands at the first step site of Grace, right where you catch your first view of Stormvale Castle, and he sounds exactly like what the game needs him to sound like. Helpful, reassuring, a guy pointing you toward the road ahead. That is the surface read, and it is designed to be the surface read. He is your onboarding into the lands between, dressed up as a harmless tutorial NPC with a weird mask and a weirder vocabulary. Follow him and the mask slips fast. He relocates to Rose Church in Liurnia the moment you put down Godric the Grafted, and that is when the transaction starts. 3 festering bloody fingers, no explanation needed, because invasion is just the entry fee. Then the real ask. Soak a white cloth in the blood of a dead maiden at the Church of Inhibition, out past Frenzied Flame Village, and bring it back like a loyalty test dressed up as an errand. Pass that test, and Vare pays out big. A reusable bloody finger, sure, but also the Pure Blood Knight's Medal, a single item that teleports you straight into Mogwyn Palace, an endgame zone you have zero business standing in this early. He frames it as proof of your devotion to the Lord of Blood. It is really just a shortcut to the deep end of the game, handed over by a man who was never your friend to begin with, and the finish is the whole video in miniature. Track Vara down inside that same palace, invade his world yourself, kill the man who recruited you, loot Var's bouquet off his corpse like a receipt. He wanted your blood the entire time. He just never said whose. But being recruited by a fanatic is one thing. What happens when the person who takes you in doesn't want to spread a curse across the world, but to end the world's god entirely, and hands you the longest, most beloved journey in the game to do it? Ranni the Witch. You end this questline by digging a corpse out of a tower and finding out it belongs to the woman standing next to you. That is not a metaphor. That is the literal final reward of the best quest in Elden Ring, and nobody warns you going in. The path starts small, almost domestic. Ranni's Rise sits tucked away in northwest Liurnia, and it stays locked until you clear out Carrion Manor and put down Royal Knight Loretta at the Moon-Gazing Grounds. Simple enough. A witch in a tower wants an errand run, then the errand turns into a war. Ranni sends you toward Nokron, Eternal City, a buried world under the lands between that stays sealed until you kill Starscourge Redon, one of the hardest demigods in the game, just to crack the ground open. You are not fetching a coffee for a witch anymore. You are toppling a general so a dead city can breathe. Inside Nokron waits the Fingerslayer blade. You bring it back. Ranni hands you the Carrion inverted statue, which flips the entire Carrion study hall upside down like a snow globe, and at the top of that inverted tower sits a corpse. The game tells you flatly whose body it is. It is hers. You are stripping a death rune, the curse mark of death, off the woman guiding you the whole time, and she is completely fine with it. Finish the quest, and you meet her again at the Cathedral of Manus Celes, claim the Dark Moon Greatsword, and unlock the Age of the Stars. An ending that pulls the lands between out from under the greater will entirely. Fans call it liberation. Nothing in the game confirms that outright, but follow where the story actually points. Ranni doesn't destroy godhood. She just installs herself as a colder, quieter version of it, watching from a distance instead of up close. Freedom from one god by kneeling to another is still kneeling. You already handed over a piece of yourself once for a curse that promised power. This time the price is bigger, and it's not yours to pay. It belongs to the one soul who has guarded Ranni since before you arrived, loyal enough to lose himself completely and die on your blade the moment her plan requires it. Blade, the wolf who taught you your first gesture in this game, is also the wolf you are guaranteed to kill by the end of it. That is not a maybe. That is not a bad ending you can dodge with the right dialogue choice. Blade's death is baked into the one path that actually finishes Ranni's story, and it happens to the friendliest, most helpful companion in the entire game. You meet him howling in the Mistwood, a huge wolf man stalking the trees for reasons nobody explains yet. Talk to Merchant Kale about the noise, and he teaches you the finger snap gesture, the exact tool you need to summon Blade for help later. It is a genuinely sweet introduction. A stranger gives you a way to call a friend. From there, Blade's job only grows. He turns up at Siofor River, then plants himself at Ranni's Rise as one of her 3 most trusted retainers, the muscle behind her entire rebellion against fate itself. His investigation into Nokron locks him directly into the Raiden fight, the same mandatory boss you cleared to keep her storyline moving. He is not a side character reacting to the plot, he is load-bearing. And once Radon falls, something in him starts to slip. His lines get shorter, colder, more obsessive, fixated entirely on the hunt Rani gave him. The devotion that made him useful starts curdling into something closer to compulsion. By the time Rani's plan reaches its final stage, Blade is gone. Not dead yet, just hostile, standing near Rani's rise waiting to attack the same hand that once fed him gestures and quests. You kill him. You loot his armor and his greatsword off the body. That is the reward for following his loyalty all the way to its logical end. Data miners have pulled cut dialogue that hints his arc was originally bigger, trimmed down late in development, which would explain why the turn feels so sudden. That is a thin thread pulled from unused files and community digging, not confirmed intent, but it lines up with how rushed his breakdown feels on screen. You already chose an ending that reshapes the world in Section 2. Now it has a face attached, and that face used to howl for you in a forest, hoping you would answer. Loyalty to a master can get you killed. But what about a scholar whose only crime was chasing forbidden knowledge, who ends up imprisoned, hunted, and forced to gamble her very body on whether you will stand with her or against her? Sorceress Selen. She asks you to help her become something that cannot be human anymore, and if you love her, you say yes. Selen starts as a prisoner. You find her sealed behind an illusory wall in the Waypoint ruins, trapped there by her own academy for the crime of studying magic they decided was too dangerous to exist. Beat down the mad pumpkinhead standing guard, and she offers you something rare in this game, a teacher who actually wants you to succeed. Hand her Seluvis's introduction, and the conversation shifts entirely, pulling Starscourge Radon and the buried city of Nokron into her story. This woman is not just selling you glintstone pebbles. She is dragging you into the same forbidden research that got her locked in a wall. That research is the whole problem. Selen is chasing primeval sorcery, a discipline built on body transference, on pouring a mind into a new vessel when the old one fails. Her quest sends you hunting down primeval sorcerers scattered across the lands between, then through Raya Lucaria itself, then out to Witchbane ruins where you find a second Selen, chained, broken. A living warning about what her own field of study does to the people who practice it. Rani asked you to help unmake an entire cosmic order. Selen only asks you to help one woman keep her body. It sounds smaller. It is not. The quest ends at the Raya Lucaria Grand Library, and there is no neutral option. Different summon signs appear depending on who you back, and one path lets Selen complete her transfer while the other has her hunted down and punished for it. Side with her, and you get to watch the woman who trained you dissolve into something that barely qualifies as a body anymore. A fused, writhing mass of glintstone and flesh that got exactly what it wanted and lost every recognizable piece of itself doing it. She wanted knowledge with no ceiling. Turns out the ceiling was her own face. Nobody hands you a clean verdict on whether Selen deserved her exile or earned it twice over. That ambiguity is the point. You are not rewarded for picking the righteous side, because there might not be one. But at least she chased her own ambition. There is a puppeteer nearby who chases power through other people's bodies, turning the living into dolls, and asking you to help him poison the very witch you may have just followed. Preceptor Seluvis. Somewhere in Seluvis's rise, there is a shelf of puppets that used to be people, and he wants to sell you one as a party member. That is the pitch. A charming old man in a nice hat offers you help, and the help used to have a name. Seluvis sets up shop near Rani's tower as one of her own retainers, a scholar who hands you Seluvis's introduction, so Sorceress Selen will finally talk about Radon and the buried city under everyone's feet. He is useful, he is polite, he is, by every early impression, exactly the kind of ally this game keeps training you to trust. Then you find the workshop. Living people, turned into puppets, stacked and cataloged like a wine cellar, then handed to you as spirit ashes to summon in boss fights. You are not just tolerating what he did, you are field testing it. Every one of those figures used to want something, used to lose something, used to be a person somebody else was rooting for, and now they exist to soak hits for you in a cave. That is before the scheme. Seluvis eventually offers you a potion built for one purpose, poisoning Rani, the master you may have spent hours actually serving. It is the same trust every retainer before him has asked for, except inverted. Where the others handed you their belief and asked you to carry it, Seluvis hands you a weapon and asks you to point it at somebody else's. The vote you've been casting this whole video can suddenly be used to overturn another person's ballot entirely, and the game does not stop you. Better yet, you don't have to use it on Ronnie at all. Give it to the wrong NPC and you get a different tragedy, no questions asked, no morality meter, just consequences. You become the exact kind of quiet manipulator Seluvis already is. Naturally, once Ronnie's questline moves far enough, Seluvis dies off screen. No boss fight, no farewell, just a locked tower full of puppets and notes, a museum for a man nobody misses. Not everyone playing this game wants to run the world through other people's choices, though. Some just want to become unbeatable on their own terms, even a man whose entire personality sounds like a joke, until the joke turns out to be a warrior's oath, one that only ends when you're the one standing over him at the finish. Iron Fist Alexander. Somewhere in the lands between, a jar with a fist is the most honorable warrior you will ever meet, and you have to kill him anyway. You find him stuck headfirst in the dirt of northern Limgrave, and the only way to help him is to punch him until he pops loose. That is the entire introduction. No dialogue trick, no puzzle, just violence as a greeting card. Alexander does not mind. He thanks you, introduces himself as a warrior pot, and starts walking toward a destiny that sounds absurd right up until it isn't. He shows up at the Radon Festival in Kylid, fighting at your side against a demigod the size of a small mountain, swinging with the same energy as a man who has something to prove to nobody in particular. He turns up again in Liurnia, then Mount Gelmir. Each time it's a quick chat, a nod, a promise that he's getting stronger, and then he's gone again, off to eat more battle like it's a meal plan. His whole personality is built on wanting to stuff himself full of combat until he becomes something mighty, and it should read as a joke. It mostly does, until you notice he actually means it. The joke stops being just a joke at crumbling Farum Azula. Alexander finds you one last time, and he does not want a chat or a nod. He wants a duel, a real one. Warrior to warrior, no audience, no festival, just the two of you and everything he spent the whole game building toward. Win, and he hands over his innards for a talisman and leaves you his armor. He asked for this fight. He wanted it to end exactly like this, on his terms, against the one person he trusted enough to be his final opponent. That flips something you've already felt once with a loyal wolf who never got a say in his own death. Alexander gets a say. He chooses the blade, chooses the moment, chooses you, and somehow that makes it heavier, not lighter. A silly pot man just handed you the closest thing this world has to a peaceful death, and asked you to be the one who delivers it. A warrior chooses to die by your blade. But there's a gentle woman who chooses instead to embrace you, and everyone thinks her comfort is a trap, when it's really the doorway to nurturing death itself, back into the world. Faya Deathbed Companion. Every guide in the lands between will tell you the same thing. Do not let the woman in Round Table Hold hug you. She's whittling your health bar down for nothing, or so it looks. What she's actually doing is handing you a vote for the return of death itself, and almost nobody takes her up on it twice. Faya sits by the fire and offers to hold you, accept, and you get Baldachin's blessing, a temporary shield that costs you a small chunk of max HP. Cheap trick, players say. Skip it. But talk to Rogier about the corpse rotting under Stormveil first, then come back and let her embrace you again. And the dialogue changes completely. She starts talking about a black knife print. Then she hands you a hand-drawn map pointing straight at the Black Knife catacombs in Liurnia. Inside, a hidden Black Knife assassin drops that knife print along with the assassin's cerulean dagger talisman. That's not flavor text, that's the front door to one of the game's darkest philosophies. Follow the thread far enough and you end up in a coffin shipped straight into deep-root depths. You cut through Fia's champions, find her waiting, and hand over the curse mark of death. The same twisted little relic tangled up in Ranni's own bid to reshape the world. 2 women, 2 separate schemes, 1 shared piece of cursed hardware. Give it to her and you can walk her all the way to an ending built entirely around nurturing Godwyn, the Prince of Death, back into something the world desperately needs and desperately fears. Every other companion in this story argued about who should sit on the throne. Fia never wanted the throne. She wanted dying to work again. The debuff was never the cost. It was the price of admission nobody read the fine print on. But nurturing death for a lost prince is a slow, quiet grief. There is a young woman whose whole body is dying in real time, a rot that eats her from the inside, and healing her only sets up a moment where you must decide whether to save her or hunt her. Millicent. She spends her entire questline trying to survive a disease that is slowly turning her into a flower. and the reward for curing her is a choice between letting her live with it or killing her before it finishes the job. That is not a plot twist. That is the whole design. Millicent's rot is not a side effect of her story, it is the story. And every step you take with Gowry and Caelid is you racing a clock that was never actually stoppable. The path is brutal before you even reach the moral part. You cure her rot in Caelid, then chase her to Altus Plateau, then to the mountaintops of the Giants, which means 2 great runes, a win over Morgoth the Omen King on the Elden throne, and Melina's rolled medallion just to ride the lift up there. You find her at ancient Snow Valley ruins. Then she moves again to the Haligtree at the prayer room site of grace, but only after beating Loretta, Knight of the Haligtree. This is not a woman who is easy to keep alive. You work for her section after section, boss after boss, the same way you worked for the man who wanted a peaceful death and got one. Then the game drops you into a rot-filled pit at the base of the Haligtree to fight an ulcerated tree spirit soaked in scarlet rot, and when it dies, 2 summon signs appear. One helps Millicent, one hunts her down and kills her. Both are framed as mercy. That is the part that ruins people. The game never codes 1 sign gold and 1 red, because there might not be a humane choice here. Help her, and she keeps living, thinking, and loving inside a body actively rotting from a disease that made millennia carve up half a continent, and you get the rotten-winged sword insignia for standing beside her. Kill her, and you end the suffering before it turns her into something that can't think or love anymore, and her prosthesis talisman is what's left behind. Either ending ties her permanently to millennia, both bound by the same flower growing out of a body that refuses to stop feeling things. You beat Morgoth, crossed the whole map twice, cured her once already, and the finish line is still a coin flip between 2 knives, each handing you a different piece of who she was. But at least her suffering is her own to end. There is a man who wants to inflict suffering on everyone, forever, and his quest offers you the chance to inherit a world where cruelty isn't a tragedy. It's the blessing, the Dung Eater. A red phantom shows up in Round Table Hold and tells you to stay away from him. That is not a warning. That is an invitation. Every other summon in that hold wants something reasonable. He wants you to watch him work. The man behind the sign calls himself the Dung Eater, and he is upfront about his hobby, which is defiling corpses across the lands between and dragging their remains into something he calls a gift. His actual body is not in the hold at all. It is buried under Lendel, Royal Capital, down in the sewers, past drowned tunnels, and things that were clearly once people. You go down there to find a man who has been rotting in the dark by choice, waiting for someone with the stomach to finish what he started. What he wants from you is worse than the sewer. He sends you hunting seedbed curses, items harvested from defiled bodies scattered across the entire map, and everyone you bring back feeds his plan. This is not the quiet mercy of a dying woman asking to be let go. This is a man asking you to collect proof that suffering happened, then hand it to him like a receipt, finish the job, and he offers you the crown for it. Become his successor, and you unlock the blessing of despair, an ending where defilement spreads to everyone, forever, no exceptions. The game calls it a blessing. That word has meant hope, mercy, grace, every other time you have heard it this video. Here it means eternal rot, worn like a gift box. Some players think he is simply broken beyond repair, a man who mistook his own violation for a philosophy. Others notice the pattern underneath, a warped logic aimed at ending the endless cycle of rebirth by making suffering permanent and universal so nothing ever gets born into it again. Nothing in the game confirms he is right, but follow the shape of what he is actually trying to do, and it stops looking like random cruelty and starts looking like a plan. Kill him instead, and you lose his armor, his talisman, the whole grim toolkit tied to his name. Complete his route, and you keep it, at the cost of everything the ending represents. Either way, you walk away holding a piece of a man who asked you to inherit the worst idea in the game, and the game let him ask. That is what happens when a man wants to tear the whole order down, but 2 quiet figures want the opposite, not to overthrow the golden world, but to fix a flaw hidden inside its own law, and it drives one of them to his death. Brother Corrin and Goldmask. No curse, no rebellion, no madness, just a man doing math on scripture until the equation ends in a body on a bridge. Corrin starts at Round Table Hold, selling incantations and arguing theology like it's a hobby, harmless. A little annoying if we're honest. Then you reach Altus Plateau and he vanishes, chasing rumors of a golden figure he cannot stop thinking about. That is the whole engine of this questline. One priest, one obsession, zero interest in fighting anyone. You find him again on the road through Altus, then near the outskirts of the capital, always a step behind the thing he's hunting. Eventually he catches up. Goldmask is standing on a bridge, pointing silently at the Erd tree, and he does not stop pointing for the rest of the game. He never explains himself. Not once. Not to Corin, not to you, not to anyone. That silence is not an accident. Everything about Goldmask reads like a man who decided speech was beneath the argument he's making, and Corin, brilliant and devout, spends the entire questline devoted to a genius who won't even confirm he's listening. It is quietly one of the saddest partnerships in the lands between, a scholar giving his life to interpret a god who never once says, "Thank you." Their path runs straight through Leyndell, royal capital, picking apart fundamentalist cracks in the Golden Order itself, not burning it down. Fixing it. Finishing their work opens the Age of Order ending, a version of the world that patches the law instead of replacing it or torching it. Corinne's ending depends entirely on how far you carried him and what you let happen along the way, and in some outcomes, he simply doesn't make it. His body left for you to find, with Goldmask relocated somewhere else entirely. The devotion doesn't get rewarded. It gets a corpse and an item drop. Compare that to the Dung Eater's rot right before it. That was ugly on purpose. This is clean, reasoned, almost gentle, and it still ends the exact same way. Even the calmest, most bloodless vote in this game gets paid for in a body. These two chase a grand truth about the world's law, but sometimes the smallest, most personal favor, a lost necklace from a lonely woman, is the one that hides a monster, a secret bloodline, and a doorway you never expected. Raya. A necklace. That is the entire pitch. Some girl by a gazebo in Liurnia lost a necklace to a thief and wants it back, and it sounds like the most disposable fetch quest in the entire game, the kind you forget 5 minutes after finishing it. It is actually a hidden front door into an entire assassin's guild. Get the necklace off the thief nearby, hand it back, and Raya does not just say thank you and vanish like every other errand giver in the lands between. She asks to meet again, this time all the way out at the Grand Lift of Dectus on Altus Plateau. Show up and she offers you something no other NPC in the game offers from a conversation alone. Accept it and you get teleported directly into Volcano Manor, skipping the entire climb up Mount Gelmir that everyone else has to grind through. One necklace, one conversation, and suddenly you are standing inside the headquarters of a faction that murders people for money. That alone would be a great twist. It is not the twist. Raya is not Raya. She is Zoraya's, daughter of Tanith, and her bloodline runs straight into something serpent-blooded and monstrous underneath the pleasant exterior she has been wearing the entire time you knew her. The girl who lost a necklace is quietly disgusted by what she actually is, and Volcano Manor's entire creed of embracing your nature as a weapon sits directly on top of that disgust like a lit fuse just waiting for someone to get close enough. So you get a choice. And unlike almost everyone else on this list, she does not hand you a belief to inherit. You are the one deciding what to hand her. Push her to accept what she is. And Zoraya's walks away from the manor whole. Push her to forget it, to bury the truth and stay comfortable, and that same choice can get her killed instead. Nothing in the game states outright which ending counts as happy, but follow where the pattern lands. A doomed person handed a truth they never asked to know, and the kindest reading and the cruelest reading turn out to be the exact same sentence. Just read in opposite directions, depending on how much comfort you think a lie is actually worth. Almost every follower so far has died or vanished, so their belief could live on through you. That has been the pattern the whole way through. But there is one whose whole arc asks the opposite question, whether you can save a person instead of inheriting them, and her answer is the key to everything. Nefali Laus. Every other follower in this story needed you to bury them before you could understand what they believed. Nefali only needs you to hand her a crown. That is not a small difference. That is the whole game, flipping its own rule for exactly one person. You meet her in Stormvale Castle, half buried in rubble, offering to fight at your side against Godric the Grafted. She talks about her father, Gideon Ofnir, the man who knows everything and helps nobody. At the time, she just looks like another summon, another warm body for a boss fight. Then Godric falls, and she shows up at Round Table Hold, and the questions start. She wonders out loud if the demigods deserve what is coming to them. She wonders if her father's endless research is actually worth anything. She is the only major companion in the entire game who starts asking whether the belief she inherited is even correct instead of asking you to inherit it for her. That should feel like relief. It does not entirely, because Elden Ring buried a second option right next to the good one. Seluvis keeps a workshop full of puppets made from people who trusted the wrong hand. Feed his potion to the wrong follower and their body stays, their will does not. Feed it to Nephili specifically, and her entire arc stops dead. No crown, no region, no future, just another obedient shape on his shelf, indistinguishable from the others he has already ruined. The village of the Albinaurics factors into her state of mind too, one more thread showing that her fate was never locked in, it was always being written by what you chose to carry to her and when. Get it right though, and she becomes the new ruler of Stormvale, not a corpse you eulogize, not a blade you carry into the next fight in her memory. An actual person, standing in an actual castle, still deciding things after the credits roll. 11 times before this, loyalty and death were the same gift. Every follower who trusted you fully ended up trusting you with the last thing they had. Nephili is the one place that same trust can end in a coronation instead of a grave, which only proves the coronation and the grave were always running on the same track. The hand that could crown her is the exact same hand that could empty her out and set her on a shelf. None of them were ever really asking you to help them. They were watching to see what you would do with their belief once it was fully in your hands. The ones you killed were proven right by their deaths. Nephili is proven right by staying alive. That was always the whole test. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.